On this episode, as we dive fin too deep, myself and Neal Driscoll have a lot to cover, including who do we think the top breakout candidates for 2025 Miami Dolphins Training Camp are. We'll discuss that in depth. Also, could this be the time that Jonah Savaiinaea, could this be the time that he wraps up his contract and rookie deal with the Miami Dolphins with so many second rounders coming off the board? We'll discuss that plus so much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! The field on the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for the touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan.
Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one after some serious technical delays where StreamYard wasn't allowing me to change my mic over to my normal mic. And then when we got into Streamlabs, Neal started having audio issues and had to change rooms. So it's been quite the journey to just come here and go live with you guys. So here we are in the flesh, in person. Want to welcome all of y'all in. Neal, how are you feeling next week? Veterans report, rookies reported this week. Training camp is getting closer and closer to starting at the end of July.
Yeah, we're kind of in that no man's land, right? But I think we're 15 days away from the Hall of Fame, 16 maybe days from the Hall of Fame game. I feel like that's when it feels like football season finally starts to me, even though it's just a meaningless preseason football game. I can't wait to get it started. We saw some of the rookies report this week. Our boy Kenneth Grant got on the football field. The NFL, even though it's kind of the offseason, not a lot of quiet. TJ Watt got his mega deal done. The Jets signed a couple people. Money's being thrown around in hordes, and it makes you appreciate having a guy like Chop Robinson on a rookie deal when you see that TJ Watt now is getting what you would deem as quarterback money, right?
And Karlaftis is about to get paid.
Yeah, and Trey Smith, the guard, got paid. I mean, a lot of people are getting paid, and it's big time money, man. So it's, I think we all saw that one stat that was posted, and it was like the best teams in the NFL at drafting all pros, and it was the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Bills were like 4 of the top 5 teams. It's no secret the best teams in this league build through the draft. The Dolphins are coming off of a few years where they've tried to build everything through trades and free agency. And I'm glad that they've kind of, are more focused on building that draft capital and focused on drafting well, because these contracts, when you see Trey Smith, the money he gets as a guard, what you see that these pass rushers are getting, even though, TJ Watt's a top 10 player at worst in this league, that type of money it makes it hard to operate as a franchise. Yeah. And then you have teams now like the Dallas Cowboys that just paid CeeDee Lamb, right? They just paid these. I don't know how they're going to afford Micah Parsons now with his deal, because he's young. He's in the prime of his career. And after Watt just signed, and, what does that mean for a guy like Trey Hendrickson, right? The Bengals are a frugal organization.
Yeah.
The bar has been set, not being able to get that deal done. I don't know if it's exactly TJ Watt money that gets it, but to me, it makes me feel like Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals aren't going to find a way to find a happy medium, and he's going to be gone at some point. So a lot going on in the league. And I guess as a Dolphins fan, I'm appreciative that the last few years we've, kind of started to build our new nucleus through the draft, because, we're a little bit ways off before we have to shell big time money at those players.
So I don't know if you saw a few things today. we were talking about it a bit before we went live here. Mike Williams retired. He called it a career. 8 seasons? 2 of those were 1,000+ yards. I think with Phillip Rivers, right? And then I don't know if you saw it today. Did you see Rashee Rice? 5 years probation and 30 days of jail time that can be served during any time during those 5
Great
years.
sentence, man. That's not that bad of a sentence, And he'll get what, you think he'll get a 4-game suspension probably when all said and done?
Yeah, I think he'll get 4 to 6 for sure.
Yeah. But honestly, all things considered, that's not that severe of a punishment. To be honest, to find 30 days, you could average 6 days of jail a year to get to get it over with.
In the offseason, a couple weekends a year, bro. That's it.
Right, and he'll probably be allowed a cell phone or a PlayStation.
And they won't put him in general pop. Yeah, they're not
right,
putting him in general pop, bro.
Right, he'll probably get 20 conjugals a day. He'll be all right.
Bro, it's gonna look like do you remember the scene out of Goodfellas where they're all cooking the pasta and they got all the bread in there? That's gonna be Rashee Rice, bro.
Playing Madden with a bunch of guys, right? But no, man. But yeah, I was surprised because it seemed like a very maybe even a slap on the wrist for him. And a team like the Chiefs, they can weather 4 games without Rashee Rice. You know what I mean? It actually, I'm not saying I never thought this year was going to be the downfall of the Chiefs, but I do think the Ravens and Bills were primed to surpass them. Look, the Chiefs are a much better football team when Rashee Rice is on the field, right? Because they have him, Worthy, Hollywood Brown. Rice is the best of that group right now, in my opinion. I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl, but for them, this is great news. They've had an offseason where they're paying a lot of money for Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, but they add Josh Simmons to the draft, so their offensive line is looking a lot better than it did a year ago. Their receiver, who a lot of us thought at first I thought he might be gone for 10 games, and now it looks like he's going to be there. So a lot's happened this offseason, even though this is the quiet part of the year.
And they'll add Henry Ruggs next offseason.
I know, right? Yeah, David Arnett's still bouncing around the league. Look, I'll tell you, in all seriousness, people are willing to take a risk on talent, right? That's what you see in this league. It doesn't matter if you're a choir boy. If you can put on the pads and make football plays, you're going to get opportunity in this league. And And you say it jokingly, Henry Ruggs will get another shot in the NFL. He will. Yeah, he's a young guy.
Nick Saban will go to bat for him. All the references you'll have. Tua will go to bat for him. Waddle will go. Jerry Jeudy will go. All these people that Alabama ties are going to go to bat for him. And we know how big of a pull Alabama players and coaches have throughout the league, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? So another thing I wanted to ask you here. I don't know if you've been following along with the ESPN lists, top 10 lists.
I'm doing my own. I'm countering them.
With coaches, executives, and scouts. Now, I basically covered everything up until the last 2. So what happened was when they came out with the receivers one, I believe, yesterday on the 16th, they had Tyreek Hill as the number 3 receiver on the list, if I remember correctly. Which, hey, it kind of contradicts all these lists that are coming out and ranking the duo of Tua and Tyreek really low. But anyways, their cornerback list came out today too. And, brother, Jalen Ramsey didn't make the top 10 corner list. And yet Tyreek Hill makes number 3 receiver still in the NFL right now. Did the Miami Dolphins get rid of the right player?
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Minkah Fitzpatrick 8 on the safety list?
Let me look. He was top 10. He was top 10.
He was 8 or 9. So, look, on the wide receiver thing,
let me check.
On the wide receiver thing, look, Tyreek Hill, for all the crap that he puts you through. Okay, 9. Okay. All the stuff Tyreek Hill puts you through, he's the best player on the Miami Dolphins still. If Tua's healthy for 17 games, Tyreek's going to put up 13 to 500 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns. That's just who he is. He is probably right now on my list the 3rd best tight end in football. I think Jamar Chase is on a different level right now. 33 touchdowns in the last 3 seasons for Jamar Chase. 2nd in the NFL over those last 3 seasons is Tyreek Hill with 26. Justin Jefferson has 23 over that time. I mean, Tyreek impacts the game in a lot of ways. Sure, he can be a pain in the ass if you're a Dolphins fan and you hate seeing all the stuff that he's done. But, to give it some levity, like Tyreek Hill is practically on vacation right now. And when I go on vacation and I drink 30 Bud Ices on a Saturday, bad shit happens too, right? So, it's one of those things. But, I think Tyreek Hill's right. But I did my cornerback list, and I had Jalen Ramsey at 10, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I do think that Ramsey still is a good corner.
Yeah,
but to answer your question that you posed is, yeah, they got rid of Jalen Ramsey. They got rid of the right guy. And I remember all the way back when the noise first started, when Ricky was telling Slick Ricky or whatever was telling everyone that there was a trade coming, all-pro player, and everyone was like Tyreek. And, it ended up obviously being Jalen Ramsey. Like, it was the right move to get rid of him when the Dolphins did. And I don't even care about him being upset. He's one of the main reasons Vic Fangio left Miami, it sounds like, based off of all the things that we've kind of put together since left. He was a declining player, but he wasn't a leader on this team either, right?
Yeah,
so you can't pay people that type of money when they're coming into meetings late and not serious about
and they're surrounded
winning.
by young, impressionable kids in that room like Storm Duck and Ethan Bonner and stuff.
But what this shows me is actually a step bigger than that, is that, if the Ravens were the team that got rid of Jalen Ramsey, initially everybody would have been like, oh my God, typical Ravens making the right move, getting rid of the player at the wrong time. The Dolphins don't get that benefit of the doubt in the national media, right? But the reality of it is that getting rid of Ramsey's contract in the future was the win for me. To get the 9th ranked safety back in the deal, to me, was a huge, especially being a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick that has, the little brief history he had here. We all know how he left. I think ultimately it was a big win for Chris Grier and the Dolphins to get rid of that contract. And it looks like the rest of the NFL doesn't have a lot of faith that Jalen Ramsey's going to take that, that leap back to the player that he was, before. So I think, the Steelers got a guy who's probably a declining asset. They had to pay even more money to get him and give up their defensive MVP from a season ago to make it happen. So it just shows me, and this is why I bang in the drum, the Steelers are going to be this year's version of the Jets, maybe not only winning 5 games, but they're a team to me that might win 7 to 8 games and not have much of a future beyond this season. And as we've talked about on this show for a couple weeks, does that lead to the end of the tenure of Mike Tomlin?
With a guy like Jalen Ramsey, where I see this all going is if they move him to safety, I think they're going to get the best out of him. It's if they leave him on the boundary, you're going to continue to see the decline. If you start
plays that he used to make around the line of scrimmage, the biggest competition for the Steelers in their own division is Lamar Jackson, right? And I think Jalen Ramsey does possess the ability to be a high-end spy for Lamar Jackson in that defense, right? Where, he's a guy that they could probably, they have, like you said, Porter and Slay on the outside. They do have Deshaun Elliott as a safety. They have Juan Thornhill, I believe it is the other safety. So they have Ramsey that they can kind of, utilize as a chess piece. He's got to be willing to play ball for that to happen, right? Like that, who knows with the guy with the agenda that he has if he does that. But where I see him being a good fit is that, the Steelers are stout up front. They have a great pass rush tandem, maybe the best pass rush tandem in the league. They do have good off-ball linebackers that can move. It gives them another way to defend Lamar Jackson, who's, just been, he's actually had his struggles against Pittsburgh, but he's been the guy that since he's been in the helm there that ultimately is consistently winning that division. So I think they made a move that puts them in a better position to beat the Kings of that division. But long story short, I think that, with a guy like Jalen Ramsey, he's a me first type of player, and that maybe he doesn't have the best interest of the Pittsburgh Steelers on his docket. It's more about what's best for Jalen. And if they're a disaster this season, I think next offseason, ultimately, I think Jalen Ramsey in the next year or two is going to find his way back to being a Ram. And I think that's where he wanted to go. So I feel like this is just another stop on his farewell tour in the league. Deion Sanders did this at the end of his career, right? He was a mercenary bouncing between the Cowboys and 49ers. I think the difference is that Deion still made big plays and played at a high level. And even Deion at 37 years old as a member of the Baltimore Ravens was, pick six in the ball and all that good stuff. I just don't see that playmaking ability from Jalen Ramsey still.
The difference, too, is from jumping back between the 49ers and the Cowboys, Deion was instrumental in winning back-to-back championships with two different teams. We can never compare Ramsey to Deion. Deion was in a different stratosphere, I think.
Deion, I say this all the time. I was a little young with Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White, but I remember the impact they had when I first started watching football. In the post world,
I remember Reggie White.
But after that, for me, I remember Deion and I remember Ed Reed. Those are the two guys on the defense side of the ball that I just remember being total difference makers, man. So yeah, I don't think he ever even at his prime was even in the ballpark of a Deion Sanders. But I do think that he's probably going to be a guy that if it's more at max 2 years in Pittsburgh, and then probably on to greener pastures.
Okay, so a big development in the last 24 hours. Now, we recently had Trey Harris is holding out right now with the Chargers, and he was picked 55th overall. Quishon Judkins, who was selected by the Browns right before the Jonah Savaiinaea selection, he's basically got like a domestic battery charge against him right now, and that's not a good situation. But since then, things have started to happen as of yesterday. The 43rd pick overall, Alfred Collins, he signed basically a 90% guaranteed contract with the 49ers. And today, Shamar Turner, he's signing his deal. So is Mike Green with the Ravens.
DJ Harvey, the running back from the Broncos.
RJ
Harvey, yep.
Yeah. And Ozzie Trapello, the tackle with the Bears, he's signing his deal. Now, here's the thing. RJ Harvey, 60th overall. Mike Green, 59th overall. Ozzie Trapello, 56th overall. Trey Harris, he's 55th overall. Shamar Turner, 62 overall. Like I said, Alfred Collins, 43 overall. None of these guys are in the 30s where Jaden Higgins and Carson Swessinger got fully guaranteed deals. And the closest one to the 37th selection that Jonah Savaiinaea is in fact Alfred Collins at 43, and he only got 90% guaranteed. I said a few days ago when rookies reported to camp that for Jonah to be practicing, we needed this deal to be wrapped up over the next week, and we needed to start seeing other dominoes fall, and that's what we've been seeing. So what are your expectations for Savaiinaea?
Yeah, I think the deal's going to get done before this week's over. And I honestly don't care what the Dolphins – if the Dolphins wanted to give Jonah Savaiinaea 100% guaranteed, I'll be honest, I don't really care that much because you moved up to go draft him where you did because you view him as a guy that's going to be on that football field starting every game at left guard, right guard, wherever they want to put him. But I think we all believe that he's a guy who's going to start 17 games a season for the next 4 years, right? So, I think the precedent has already been set. The Texans haven't, Nick Caesaro is a solid GM. The Browns, the Browns are the Browns, but I do think the deal's going to get done. I don't think the Dolphins will have to do 100% guaranteed. They could probably get in the same ballpark as what it took to get Alfred Collins done and get it done. But I do think I think it's important to get him done. It's a young guy. You're in a weird spot as a franchise, right? Because some of your fan base believes you're going to win right away, and portion of the fan base, like me, thinks that you're really just trying your hardest to win this year, but you still have a pulse on the future. The thing about Jonah Savaiinaea is he fits in both of those, viewpoints. He's a guy that is part of the present and part of the future, and this is the guy that, for lack of a better example, you really drafted him to replace Liam Eichenberg, right? That's what he's going to do in this offensive line, a guy that not a lot of this fan base loves. If you let this trickle into the, deep into the training camp and Jonah's not taking all the reps that he should be, it's just going to be something that gets the Dolphins out of the gate slower than they should be. And the start of their schedule is softer than it's going to be in the back half of it. Let Jonah go get his reps against the weaker competition and start to develop that confidence. Like I think they got to get this done and be the trendsetter. You don't have to wait for someone around you to go get it done. Like he's a guy they traded up for him. They had a high grade on their draft board for him. Like why dance around? It's the same thing as the Zach Sieler contract to me. Like there are situations where being shrewd is smart, but there's also situations where being shrewd is idiotic.
Yeah.
Not paying Zach Sieler, your 35th overall left your guard that you drafted to be the guard for the next 5+ years, to play games with them right now just doesn't make sense to me, right? So you have another punter on the team. You have two punters right now. One, Jake Bailey, who's probably going to get cut and save you about $2.3 million in cap space.
Yeah.
That's the money that you need to go get Jonah Savaiinaea done.
Let me ask you this. How much do you have an idea of what our cap space is right now? It's pretty low. But I saw someone trying to put out there that, well, the Dolphins will use this as a reason not to sign Zach Sieler. But isn't that isn't this situation, remind me if I'm correct or not, Neal, doesn't extending Zach Sieler open up like almost 11 million? Just right. Oh, no, him and Jordan Brooks, if you extend both of them, they open up about 11 million, right, together, and Sieler's about half of that, right? 5.5, 6 million if you extend them.
Yeah, 5.5.
So isn't that not a good enough excuse if you're low against the cap? Because isn't it more in your favor to extend Sieler, considering he's going to open up 5.5 million for you?
Well, look, I have them after they signed Savaiinaea because it's going to get done. Like it's going to get done. So I have them around 2.5 million after that happens, which is low. It's one of the lowest we went into the season with. And the big difference after the Ramsey departure was that we took on Minka's contract. But if the Dolphins were in a cap strap situation, they could extend Sieler, they could extend Jordan Brooks. They could rework Minka Fitzpatrick's
That's
deal.
what I was going to say. That gives you money, too, if you want to give him some guaranteed, right?
Right. I mean, you could probably lower his cap hit in half to 7, save $8 million, and just give him a bonus up front and extend his years, right? Like there's ways they can make money available if need be. And what it also tells me is that during training camp, if player X is a veteran making a decent cap hit and player Y is a young guy on a rookie deal, they're probably more likely to keep player Y on that rookie deal and keep the extra cash when things are tight, right? So it's going to make interesting for some training camp battles. But like, I'm not worried about the Dolphins cap, and it's not just because of everything I said. It's also because of where I think they need to go to win, which is they could be up to 90 million under the cap if they decide to move on from certain players after this offseason, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't want them to take that $90 million this time around, and go and buy free agents. I don't want them to do that anymore. I want them to build this team through the draft. I don't care who's available. I'm not trading first or second round picks, and I'd be very tough to trade a third round pick for certain players unless you actually absolutely have control of them on a cheap contract or something like that, because I don't want to find this situation where we're always trying to restructure contracts to make cap space. If you notice what we said is we didn't talk about restructuring anyone. We talked about extending them. And it's a difference in philosophy where, restructuring contracts, you're kicking it down the road, and eventually you're going to be hit with a bill. When you extend someone, what you're really doing is that you are pushing off their cap hit over numerous years and paying them a large bonus up front. There's a big difference between doing so, and I think it's not off the table to get something done. And to be honest, the one thing I appreciate of it is I really appreciate Zach Sieler. I think a lot of players in his situation would hold out. I really do. And I don't know what's going on with his agent and him and the Dolphins, but it's very shocking to me that you haven't heard Zach Sieler hold out at this point, because you talk about a guy that's outperformed their contract. He's at the top of the list in this league at this point, right? So, it just makes me like Zach Sieler, the player, even more.
What do you think? Do you think they get something done with him?
I don't think the Dolphins are committed to extending anyone into next season. I really don't. I think this is a wait-and-see approach, and if the quarterback's not healthy all 17 games and this team isn't contending, or if they don't make up the playoffs, or if they don't win a playoff game, like I think that they have some expectations that are being put on them, and if they don't deliver, changes are coming. And I think what they'll do is, if things go sideways fast, and not any of us want this to happen, but I could see them even trading Zach Sieler at the deadline, and I would hate it. It's probably the number one move they could make outside of trading like a Chop Robinson for me. That would just burn my chop. But you got to look at it in the scheme of where they are as a franchise. That if Zach Sieler is a 30-year-old player, even though defensive tackles don't have, their shelf life doesn't end at 30, but I could totally see them with the mindset of, we got to acquire as much draft capital as we can, because this quarterback market in a strong class, we want to have the flexibility and agility to move up and down draft boards. Yeah. Like I don't think any extensions are going to get done. I don't. And I think it's a dangerous game to play, because on those lists that you mentioned, the top 10 executives, right?
Yeah.
A guy like Jordan Brooks was on the honorable mentions and got votes. And he's a guy that's very cheap in terms of the grand scheme of what you're paying him for what he is. And what I think he is a good number one linebacker, a excellent number two linebacker. And for what they're paying him right now, they have an extreme value. That's where Chris Greer hit. But this is where we fail every time when it comes to these players that we find, right? Zach Sieler, we find him. We extend him on a hometown discount once. Now we're not going to give the guy the contract he probably deserves again, right? Jordan Brooks, we found him, right? Aaron Brewer, we found these guys. And it's like, when you find somebody and you don't have to break the bank to sign them, the Dolphins wait to the last minute, then they get more expensive, and then they go out the door. And that's where it's like, we talk about Chris Greer. You and I have been advocates. I think he does a great job of adding talent. He sucks at contract extensions.
Yeah.
He is awful at it. And
I think Shore deserves some of that blame too, right?
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, like, I love Zach Sieler. You'd be hard pressed to find four guys in this league I like more than Zach Sieler. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if Zach Sieler could be in his last year as a Dolphin, and that sucks.
I would fire Chris Greer if that's the case. If a guy who's been this big of a team player and taken these many discounts, and if you can't take care of him with what his production's been here, he quieted all the noise that, he was just eating because Wilkins was there. He quieted that real quick last year. I've said this before. If him or Chop, or him and Chop, weren't having good games last year, our front seven was almost inept last year. You know what I mean? I think if there's anyone, you've handed out this money to Tyreek, to Bradley Chubb, to Tua, name them. If there's anyone who actually deserves new money handed out to him, it's Zach Sieler. And if there's anyone on this 53 right now that encompasses what you want this culture to be, what you want your leadership to look like, and what you want players who buy in to look like, as well as a guy who deserves to retire as a Miami Dolphin, it's Zach Sieler's at the top of my list. So I will tell you this much. If we either, make him frustrated and he walks out the door because we can't pay him, we don't pay him, or because we don't pay him or don't want to pay him, they end up putting him on the block like you suggested, I will be up here weekly, daily, calling for Chris Greer's head.
Me too. And think about this. Like, you think about where this team is and where they're heading after this year, despite whatever happens, right? Bradley Chubb is probably in his last year as a Dolphin, right? Like, it's probably over after this year. Yeah. Jalen Phillips is on the 5th-year option. He's probably going to get more money in the open market than the Dolphins are willing to pay him, right? He's probably gone after this year. So you have young Chop, you have young Kenneth Grant up front. Where's that veteran presence that's going to keep that line intact, right? Because I tell people this all the time. Everyone who's like doing their mock drafts for 2026 and it's like, give me a quarterback or a cornerback, pass rush is going to be high on the Dolphins list again, because Phillips and Chubb are going to go out the door, and they're going to want a young guy to pair with Chop Robinson and Kenneth Grant up front, right? Like, that's going to happen.
Well, Neal, how much faith did they have in them staying healthy because they were going out and trying to get Joey Bosa?
Right. Well, and I've heard that the player that they loved in last year's draft cycle wasn't eligible is Ruben Bain from Miami. I've heard that they love him, and he's probably going to go before the Dolphins pick unless the wheels do fall off. But there's always the ability to trade up for a guy you want, right? So, but Zach Sieler to me, you get I think you couldn't get a first round pick if you trade him. I don't think so because of his age and because he's owed money. I think he's a second round pick. I don't want a second round pick more than I want Zach Sieler, right? Like you can't sell that to me. So I hate that it could be heading that way. I'm just taking my Dolphins goggles off and seeing where they are, and they're not giving guaranteed money, right? They're not giving extensions beyond this year, right? Like there's expectations that have to be hit. Like Tyreek Hill could hit 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns and still be released because it saves him $36 million. Right. So
no matter what.
Right. Don't go. I would say this. For your Christmas list, all you Dolphins fans that are making your Christmas list, I'd be very careful of putting what jerseys you want on there. Maybe a Chop, maybe a Kenneth Grant, maybe an Achane. Anybody else, I don't know. I think you're playing a dangerous game.
I'll be honest with you. I'm worried about when Achane's money up, when his deal's up, are they going to pay him? Because he's going to be there. The way he's trending, he's going to be one of the most dynamic weapons on the free agent market whenever his contract his deal is up, and it's only 4-year deal because there's no 5th-year option. Are they gonna pay the $12+ million it's gonna take to keep Devon Achane?
I don't think so. And it sucks. And
unless it's a new regime. If it's a new regime, maybe they do. I don't think Greer and Shore would.
Right. I don't either. And maybe it's a new regime. And but here's the thing is Devon Achane is not just a running back.
That's
right. He catches balls. Yeah, he's good. Yeah. He's good. There are teams that would line up on the open market and be like, "Come to Papa, come to Papa." Like you can do so much with them.
This just shows our faith in the lack of ability to get out of ahead of extensions by Chris Greer and getting them done. We've watched Wilkins walk. We watched Robert Hunt walk. They didn't value any of these guys until the last minute, and then it was too late. And we know how Chris Greer, it's changed a little bit since McDaniel's come in terms of drafting the value of how they perceive running backs. But I have a hard time. I mean, look at Jonnu. They don't value tight end as paying $10+ million right now. They're like, yeah, whatever. Are they going to pay Achane that kind of money, man? As a Dolphin fan, just watching the trends in the history of Greer in this front office, if they are in place still, I got real serious concern. I don't think it's a lock that they'll take care of Achane when it should be, which is crazy.
Especially if Mike McDaniel's gone, right? Especially if Mike McDaniel's gone, because they, it's, and that's where I think they are. I don't think they want to commit to any players because I think this is them saying loud and clear, we don't know if Mike McDaniel's going to be our coach next year. We don't know who's going to be running our defense.
I'm not talking about
year.
paying Achane this year. I'm talking about next year is when you want to probably.
Well, I'm just saying,
deal with them, right?
I'm saying anything that they do to not move money into 2026 to me is the Dolphins front office telling you that there could be wholesale changes if certain metrics aren't hit. I think that's what it tells me. At least that's what I see. I see the guy it's Chop, it's Kenneth Grant, it's Waddle for me, it's Achane. I'd even throw Jonah Savaiinaea in that list and Zach Sieler. Those are the 6 guys that no matter what happens, I think have to be here, right? Everybody else, I could see. If Minka isn't an impact player making picks, and the Dolphins want to move him to a contender, I could see that happening, right? I could see a lot of moves that they make, except to not have your young. And Devon Achane, this isn't us drinking Dolphins Kool-Aid. I've seen fantasy football magazines that have Devon Achane on the cover as the number 1 projected PPR player. You know what I mean? So it's Devon Achane is one of the best weapons in football right now.
Next offseason is when you got to start talking the deal. You got to get out ahead of that, man.
Right. And you know what, though? Here's you got Breece Hall coming up, and Breece Hall's not going to break the bank, but he'll still get $12 million, I think. I still do think he'll get that. Yeah, because
the cap's going up another $25-30 million again next year.
There you go. Because if that deal with Disney and the NFL Network gets done, right, that cap's going to skyrocket, and then the cost of every player that you want goes up to match that, right? And I just think it's one of the best parts about being a GM is to be able to project what your young talent's going to do 2 years from now, right?
And where the
And
market's going to be.
where the market's going to be. And if you don't see right now with your naked eye, you don't have to watch tape or anything in the world to see that Achane is a difference maker who's an ascending young player. Wait, was he? And if I'm not wrong, he was the Dolphins MVP last year, right?
I don't remember.
I thought he was
Team
the team
MVP?
MVP. Yeah, I think he was a Dolphins team MVP. Wrote it on, but like that just shows you, like, in a year that got away from us, a year that we failed to deliver, a young second-year running back was the team's best player.
Zach Sieler was.
Okay, good for him.
Calais Campbell earned the Don Shula Leadership Award, and Taron Armstead got the Nat Moore Community Service, and Jalen Phillips got the Ed Block Courage Award, but it was Sieler.
Okay, well, good. Zach Sieler deserves it, but it doesn't change it. I would definitely pay him 12. I'd pay him up to $15 million a year because I think he's such a receiving threat. And see, everyone says the shelf life of running backs is short, which it is, right? But when you have an elite one, in the grand scheme of what costs in the NFL are, when you compare it player to player, it's not that expensive compared to if you have a great pass rusher, you got to pay him $40 million, right? Like, a great running back who can be the focal point of your offense can cost you $12 to $15 million. And you and I both were on the same page when Jonathan Taylor rumors are there. I was willing to pay Jonathan Taylor. Look, they were probably smart for not making that move because I think Achane is a better player than Jonathan Taylor right now. So, you know, if he's a young guy and he'll be 25 years old, I think when he's due money, I'd pay him the second.
The other thing you got to be weary of is if you move off of Tyreek Hill, now what? Now a lot of those targets and opportunities might go the way of Achane, and that'll just increase his value. You know what I mean?
He's awesome, man. Achane is, if you're asking me what I'm excited for this season, Achane is one of the main things I'm excited for in the NFL, not just as a Dolphins fan. Like, I think he's a guy, and I don't draft Dolphins in fantasy football. I try to avoid it. I'd take Achane. I would take Achane. Yeah, you know?
Yeah. All right, so we got training camp. The veterans are reporting next week. We have gone over some of our top 5 breakout candidates. Neal's got his list. I've got my list. Let's show everyone and let's get into this, and so everyone can see exactly what we got here. So
we share a couple, right? Yeah, we got a couple on there the same.
We got a couple that's the same. So let's start off with I got Jalen Wright, and you got Jalen Wright. He's been making his rounds on social media. You know, I've talked to his father. I talked to Curtis actually just a few nights ago, and he's up to about 213 pounds. So he's actually added about 3 or 4 pounds of muscle. I've heard he just looks super explosive. I heard great things from when I talked to people who were at OTAs and such privately. You know, it looks like it's going to be a potentially big season for Jalen Wright. You know, I've reported this. I've told everyone. McDaniel sat right down along with Achane and said, you guys are going to be the best running back duo in the NFL this year. And man, I'll tell you this right now, his father Curtis is so confident. He just says, just give those boys okay blocking and they're going to go off. So we both see Jalen Wright as a breakout player. Anything you want to add to Jalen Wright?
Look, I think the Dolphins' running situation this year is going to be a lot different than last year, just for the major improvements they made at the guard position, right? Like, when you watch a lot of the tape from last year, instant penetration by the defensive front against our guards, right? Like, we've all seen the Liam Eichenberg on his heel. Like, when you see that happening, right, it's hard for running backs to find their lanes because they have pressure in their face right away. He looks yoked. He looks like he's taking it serious. His offseason approach has seemed like a guy that was pissed off that he didn't get the opportunity he wanted as a rookie.
Yeah.
We both watched a lot of film of him coming out of Tennessee. We all both had him in our top 5 running backs in that draft. You know, I think he's going to be every bit the player that we all anticipated. And when we're talking about extensions for a guy like Achane, one of the reasons that Achane might not get it is the emergence of a guy like Jalen Wright, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and then if Ollie Gordon emerges behind him, now you're really in trouble.
because saying someone's the best at something in the league is really hard. But I will say this: it wouldn't surprise me in the least if Jalen Wright and Devon Achane was the most productive running back tandem in this league at all. Like it
Yeah.
wouldn't. I actually maybe kind of expect it, if that makes sense. And that's how much of faith that I have in Jalen Wright as a player. I think he's going to be terrific this year. And we saw a couple runs last year where we saw that player. And, I thought I saw a little bit of Jamal Charles in him. And, I think he's going to be awesome this year. I think he's going to take probably the biggest leap on the entire offensive side of the ball this year.
You know what I told Curtis this, and I'll say it publicly. I can't wait to remind all those people that were banging the table for Cam Scatabo. And I know you remember, Neil, on X and up here, I kept reminding people, we don't need him. We got Jalen Wright. What are y'all talking about? I can't wait till Jalen pops off this year and to remind all those people that wanted to move off him so quickly for a guy like Cam Scatabo that I can't wait when Jalen Wright breaks out to remind them that they're wrong because they didn't. Man, I mean, you saw it, Neil. How many plays were dead to right? He had no business doing anything, and he makes a single cut right up back towards the middle, and he turns a 4-6 yard loss into 8 or 12 yard gain. We saw it like so many times last year, and really, they should have pulled. They should have taken the reins off after his game against the Patriots, but they reined him back in, especially after that fumble. But I was also told like they weren't overly happy with his blocking last year to what they expected to get. So I expect him to be a little bit better there. Now, we both have, from there on out, we have one other player we share, but then we differentiate. So next up, I got Jonah Savaiinaea. I think the deal's going to get done. I heard he was one of the best looking rookies in OTAs and rookie minicamp. I heard privately that, right away, it looked like he was comfortable. You were seeing the great movement skills. Now, the pads got to come on, and we got to see what he can do when the pads come on. But for me, Jonah Savaiinaea, I think we're going to be coming out of training camp super high on what we got, and he's going to be someone we're confident in. I think him and Aaron Brewer are a safe bet to be the surest things heading into the season right now because we don't know where James Daniels is going to be with his Achilles injury. We don't know what Patrick Paul is going to be. And Austin Jackson, I'm pretty sure got hurt. He got bumped up again and banged up again and hurt again in OTA. So who knows if he'll even make it through training camp. But I think Jonah Savaiinaea, he's going to have a big camp. I think we're going to come away saying he was one of the best players in camp, not just rookies. You've got Malik Washington having a breakout. Obviously, people expect Nick Westbrook-Ikhine to really lock up that third spot. But Malik, Neal, he's going to have a chance to contribute as a punt returner, as a kick returner, as an F out of the slot. Why do you think he's going to be a breakout player this year in training camp?
Because of what you just said. Because I think one of the things that have hurt the Dolphins for so long has been just horrific special teams play across the board, right? Like, I'm critical of Jason Sanders. Jason Sanders is probably a kicker, a top dozen kicker in football. I think Stonehouse is going to be, when you think about distance and being able to boom the ball, he's up there in the upper echelon. I think Malik Washington is a difference maker as a return man, and he's another young guy that's approached the offseason just like he is ready to work, man. This guy seems like he is all football 24/7. And I think Westbrook-Ikhine is going to get a lot of opportunities in the red zone, but I just have a hard time seeing Malik Washington not being able to find himself on the football field. So I think when we're watching these preseason games, he's going to make big play after big play in the passing game as a return guy. And, when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I'm not coming out here saying he's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver and catch 10 touchdowns. He's probably the 5th or 6th pass catcher on this football team when you think of Achane and that. But I think he's just a guy that helps this football team in a variety of ways. And, he's a guy, some people can make a core living being a core special teams player in this league like a Matthew Slater did for the Patriots for all those years. And I just think Malik Washington brings a lot to the table, and he does a lot of shit really good. And I think he's going to be a guy that he's here for the duration of his rookie deal. And none of these young receivers that they're drafting around him are going to beat him for a spot. I've seen like people, knocking on the door about getting a Keenan Allen on the team, and I've seen a lot of that nonsense. Like,
No,
I
Keenan
just,
Allen.
yeah, I don't think we need any of that stuff. Let a young guy like this who's hungry earn his keep.
Yeah. And then you got a guy like in that receiving room like Andrew Armstrong, who led the SEC in yards. AJ Henning, who's a dynamic returner. They've added Theo Weiss. We finally get to see what Tajay Washington has. Man, no Keenan Allen.
No.
I only had 2 offensive players. You had 3. Your third being Jalen Conyers, who's in a wide open tight end room right now. Darren Waller, his contract just became public, and wow, what a deal for the Dolphins. They're basically giving up almost nothing for him. You think Jalen Conyers has a chance here to leap the Hayden Ruchis, the Tanner Connors, and such?
Out of this list, it's the person that I felt less confident about, but I wanted to take a big swing. I kind of wanted to put myself out there a little bit. I have no faith in what I call fool's gold Tanner Connor. Like, I know that everyone's always talking him up, how athletic he is. Like, if you're that athletic and you've looked that good at practices, yet you haven't been on the football field, something's wrong. So I have no faith in him. I don't really have high or low expectations for Darren Waller. I just want to see how it plays out. But I will say, I think the tight end room sucks outside of Darren Waller, and because of that, I think one of the undrafted free agents that we signed that was a steal was Conyers. He's a good natural pass catcher. And when you look at earning your roster and outperforming other people that, the Dolphins might be able to shave a couple bucks on their cap, it's going to get as cheap as it can in terms of NFL contracts with a guy like Jalen Conyers on your roster. And I think he's a guy in the preseason who's going to catch a lot of balls actually from Quinn Ewers late in preseason games. And I think he's going to have every chance. So, like, when I say that, like, he's a breakout player, I think he has a strong shot to make this team as the 4th tight end. I don't think he's the next Rob Gronkowski by any means, but I think he's a guy that I'm intrigued to see what his skill set as a pass catcher translates to this team. And when you send a player like Jonah Smith out the door, that opens up opportunity for young players. And, the Dolphins did sign Darren Waller, but it's not like they broke the bank to do so. I think it's going to be, we're going to fill that production by a committee. And when you look at pass catchers, it's not going to be Julian Hill, right? Like he's not some pass catching, demon out there. So I think Conyers is a guy that can catch some balls, make some plays here.
And yeah, Darren Waller, I mean, what was that? A 1-year, $2 million base value plus $3 million of, quote, not likely to be earned incentives, which is actual NFL language. So we'll see how that all plays out there. Now, someone we both did have on our list, someone I've been hyping up since before OTAs started, Grayson Murphy. He was huge at said OTAs. I think, when he was coming out, he was the number 1 pressure getter of that draft class last year. Yes, Chop Robinson's draft class. It was Grayson Murphy. Got injured last season. It looks like, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be shocked, Neal, if we come out of camp and he's left Mo Kamara, for example.
You stole the words. I would say this. If I was Mo Kamara's real estate agent, I wouldn't tell him to be buying a house right now, because I do think that, and I like Mo Kamara, and I'm half joking when I say that, but I think Grayson Murphy, even at times last year, showed something, and there was buzz about him. And when we talk about the Dolphins in the future and players like Chubb and Phillips might not be here for the long haul, because I'd love Jalen Phillips to have a banner year, be locked up for 3 years, and have him and, Chop be our press. But I think Murphy's going to find the football field. It looks like he's a guy that will definitely be a rotational type of player that's going to have a chance, despite the depth that we have, take some snaps and make some plays. So I'm excited for Grayson Murphy. And, I keep mentioning this preseason, but like, these are the guys that you're going to get to see play a lot of snaps.
Yeah, I'm excited about seeing Grayson Murphy a lot, to be honest with you.
Grayson, I think Malik Washington, a lot of the names that we have on this list, I think these are guys, and For those that are saying, Neal and Reason, you guys are idiots to pick guys like Grayson Murphy and
Who's
Malik
saying that?
Washington as breakup. I'm just saying, if there is people that say that, like what you're failing to understand is that one of the core problems with the Miami Dolphins is that this team has no depth. It's
Yeah.
so top heavy, the roster.
Yeah.
Like, you need players like this to develop. You need them to develop in house because it shows that you have good coaching and a good system.
Yeah.
If all the players that we put up here were Kenneth Grant, Chop Rob, that's easy. Anyone can do that. Like,
that's why you got Chop Robinson on your list.
Well, but there's a bigger story there. But here's what's funny, though. It's so funny to me that, like, and I'm laughing when I say this because I'm included in this. We are a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 25 years, right?
Yeah.
Yet, if a rookie doesn't make an instant impact in year one, he's a bust. Right?
Yeah,
like think of the irony of that, right? Like, it's crazy. But look, Grayson Murphy's making this team.
Yeah.
So that means that guys like Mo Kamara and Quentin Bell, like, you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah.
So I think a guy like Grayson Murphy lapping those types of players to make the roster tells a big story.
Yeah, I agree. Number 4, I got, we need corners to bust out. He's had a really strong OTAs. That's for me, it's got to be Isaiah Johnson. Now, I could have put Storm Duck here. I could have even put Ethan Bonner, who earned a orange jersey so far in this preseason. But Isaiah Johnson just seems like a kid that he's getting better. It's clicking. And last season, especially in the second half, it started to click a little bit more for him. I think Isaiah Johnson is going to have a really good training camp. I think he's going to make this roster. And hopefully the guy can become a contributor because we need them. Now, you named a guy here in Chop Robinson. And it's funny. You were here, Neal. I wanted Chop Robinson well before the draft last year. And I was defending him tooth and nail when we made the pick. And then I continued to defend him tooth and nail through the first 6-7 weeks when everyone wanted to label him a bust. Then all of a sudden, he started getting the calls he should have been getting. He started mixing up his pass rush bag and his pass rush game plan. He started setting the edge much better in the second half of the season. And now you've got him on your breakout list when, personally, I already think the breakout started in the second half of last season. But I understand why you got him on the list here because he's another player. He had a really strong OTAs, right? He was really, really strong and dominant looking at OTAs. Let me guess. You think this is going to be a huge training camp that's going to seep into a huge regular season for Chop?
Yeah, I think this is beyond the Dolphins for me. I think Chop Robinson is going to be the best player on the Dolphins.
Chop Robinson's my number one. Spoiler alert for when the list comes out, and I'm actually going to do a video on it with all 22. Chop Robinson is actually my breakout player of the year for the Miami Dolphins coming up.
Yeah, I think that he's a guy that he's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but I think he's going to have a strong enough season that there's consideration for him. Yeah. I think he blossoms. I think he's going to be the best player on this Dolphins defense. I think he's going to be a big story in the NFL. There's people that I really like to follow who cover the NFL, and it's not Dolphins content related, that just think that this guy's ceiling is unbelievable. We've heard some of the very lofty Von Miller-esque comparisons, which is crazy. The guy looks like he had a great rookie season, and we really focus on the second half. In the second half of the season, he was a top 10 defensive player in the NFL. He had 56 pressures as a rookie, 6 sacks. You can worry about how he fits the run if you want to as a fan. I could give a shit less. I don't care, what he does against the run. I think he was adequate. He made a couple big stops behind the line of scrimmage. That Rams game, I remember him living in the backfield and being one of the best players on the field.
Yeah.
I think that explosiveness and that DNA is elite, right? Yeah. It's elite. Last year as a rookie, he got thrown to the wolves with his counterpart being Emmanuel Ogbah, who he got off the streets. Mm-hmm. And instead of being the guy that got to get brought along slowly behind Chubb and Phillips like the plan originally was, both players went down, or Chubb never came back. Phillips went down. Chop had to be the guy overnight. He was third in defensive of the rookie of the year voting.
Fourth.
And was he fourth in defensive rookie of the year, and was probably the brightest spot on a bad season for me as a Dolphins fan last year. Achane and Zach Sieler being the others. I just think this year with Phillips and Chubb on that line, with Kenneth Grant and Zach Sieler on that line, that you can't block and put a helmet on every one of those players. And Chop's going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities, and he's going to be polished because everyone who laughed at the pick and said he only had 4.5 sacks, and look, we have a portion of this fan base that knows everything because they can look at a box score.
How many sacks did TJ Watt have?
Right, or Daniel Hunter, or there's a lot of guys that have great careers. Like box score scouting only goes so far. He also was one of the top 3 highest pressure rate pass rushers in college football back-to-back seasons during that period of time.
Yeah,
he's learning how to develop skills that help him finish, and when he blossoms and learns that, he's going to be unstoppable. Might be high praise, but he's a guy that I would be shocked if he doesn't get 12 sacks this year. That's my bar for him.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he's flirting with 15. I just think he's that type of player. Maybe not as high as a level as like a Michael Parsons was in Dallas, but I think he's going to be just a little bit below that, which is unbelievable because that's a superstar pass rusher to me. And I think at the end of the year, he's a top 10 pass rusher in this league. And as a guy that wanted Troy Fautanu, I'd sign up to have a guy like Chop Robinson 10 out of 10 times at that type of production.
Listen, TJ Watt only played 2 seasons in college at Wisconsin. His first year at Wisconsin, he didn't have a single sack. All right. Daniel Hunter, who you just brought up, the guy had 4.5 sacks, throughout his career at LSU. I mean, you got to have faith in the scouting and what these guys will be at the next level. Shout out to Penn. Penn just donated 5 inside the NFL memberships. Jackal, Uber, Beaner, D Wolverine, Stan, and Rodney Williams all received some memberships courtesy of Penn. Appreciate you, Penn. Thank you very much. So, final guy I got on here, and someone I'm going to talk about when I do my video this weekend, when I break down the defense and special teams, is Dante Trader Jr. He was making plays in rookie minicamp and OTAs. He was turning the ball over, something this defense desperately needs. Only had 10 interceptions last year. One of the bottom teams in turnovers defensively in the NFL. So, and I think another thing, kind of like Malik Washington, Dante Trader is going to have opportunities on special teams. I mean, he's got gunner experience. I just think he's going to be and I've said this before, I think he's going to be a younger, higher upside version of what Sieler and Neal was here. And
wow, okay, yeah.
I think he's just going to get better. You know what I mean? So, I think Dante Trader is going to have a really, really strong he's going to have a really strong camp, I think. And I had to give honorable mentions, all right, to Jalen Waddle and Willie Gay Neal, because Jalen Waddle, he looks like a man determined to stamp himself as I can be a number 1, as well as Willie Gay Jr. was breaking out, and it looks like he's going to continue to play well like he was in OTAs. You got about 30 seconds here, Neal. Any final thoughts as we wrap this up and we get ready for veterans to report early next week?
Yeah, I think a lot of people forgot just how good Jalen Waddle was. And I used the recent extension of Garrett Wilson to highlight that over their first 3 years of their career, when you put their stats side by side, Wilson has more receptions, but less yards, less touchdowns, and a lower average per catch than Waddle did. During his first 3 years, he was absolutely brilliant here. He had a down year last year. When your quarterback misses 6.5 games and the wheels fall off, shit happens, right?
Yeah.
I think Jalen Waddle is a guy that is as good as he was when we drafted him. And I think he's going to make a lot of people remember. And then you look at the guaranteed money of his deal, it's $11 million less than what Garrett Wilson got. So that was one of the deals that Chris Greer got in front of, and it really worked out. We got to get in front of some of these contracts a little earlier to retain our own. But I love that you threw Waddle on that list, because I do think Waddle's coming into this season very underrated by everybody. And I can't wait to be him doing the penguin in the end zone all that time. That was good stuff when that was happening. We need to see more of it.
Yeah. All right, guys, smash that like button. Over 300 of you in the room. Fins up, and we'll see you on the next one.